Welcome everybody to the first edition of Big Shoulders Digital, a new show that's going to come to you to talk primarily about politics in Chicago, but also in the grander scheme of things with the state of Illinois and the country that we live in. We picked the name Big Shoulders Digital, Big Shoulders referencing the poem from Carl Sandburg back in 1913, I believe. Some people say it's the city of Broad Shoulders. It's actually written as the city of Big Shoulders. I personally was born and raised in Chicago, lived here all of my life, and have seen things change dramatically, some for the better, but a lot for the worse. I'm going to bring a gentleman on in a quick second to discuss the political aspects of the Republican Party here in Chicago. A lot of people don't even know there is a Republican Party here in the city of Chicago, but there is, and there's a lot of good ideas that are going to be discussed today and moving forward with different guests. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce a gentleman. His name is Steve Boulton, and he is the Chicago Republican Chairman. I'm going to bring him on screen. Welcome, Steve. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Well, thanks for having me, John. I hope this show is a great success.
I do as well. Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself, and then we can jump into a few subjects that we would like to discuss?
Well, I'm a practicing attorney in Chicago. I've spent 20 years in litigation against the Chicago machine. Most recently, the lawsuits people may have read about in federal court against Michael Madigan on behalf of candidates and other people seeking redress. I've been involved in Republican politics off and on for 20-odd years, and I had the good fortune of being honored by the local committeeman of being elected the Chicago Chairman last April.
That is fantastic, very impressive. I appreciate you being here, and without further ado, let's just jump into a few things that I know are top of mind with you and so many other people here in Chicago. I believe it was back in January, late January, that an op-ed was published in the Chicago Tribune. Correct me if I'm wrong as I go along here. But there were several points that the op-ed really picked out and focused on. And one of them is, I'll let you expound on this, but asserting a new agenda here in Chicago, because as we're all very aware, there are a lot of problems here in Chicago that need to be addressed, and items that need to be talked about, and ways of doing things that need to be changed. So please tell us your thoughts on just a new agenda.
Well, there's been a number of studies that show that the way power is distributed in Chicago is holding the city back tremendously. It's antiquated. We have aldermen running around as little princes. We have power is in the wrong places. And so what we in the Republican Party are urging is a radical transformation of the way power is structured in Chicago in order to bring it in line with other American cities. There's been a number of studies, one of which pointed out that, for example, there is no city charter, no constitution of the city of Chicago. And since there is no constitution, for example, there is absolutely no provision for recall of a Chicago mayor. Mayor Lightfoot could go out and commit felonies, but there's no mechanism to even try and recall a mayor, such as you're seeing with the governor of California. It can't happen here because no one sat down and written a charter to say we need to have basic fundamental principles. Beyond that, there's an issue of the city council, in our view, is way too large. It needs to be transformed into more of a legislative body. The aldermanic privilege that has led to a whole lot of corruption and a whole lot of stifling of business in Chicago because businesses who won't pay off don't get permits, that has to be stopped in Chicago. There's also, we need to have an elected police board. We need to reform the way power is distributed in the Chicago public schools. It goes on and on and on, but there have been a number of good studies that have come up with very good proposals. We are trying to formulate an agenda for what we believe would be an appropriate way to begin to govern the city of Chicago in this modern century as opposed to the last one. And we think that the voters might like it once we bring it out, and they might give us time to support it.
Very good. Now, there's going to be people outside of the city of Chicago who are going to see this, as well as hopefully a lot of people that live in Chicago proper. But could you explain briefly, you talked about aldermen and their wards and stuff. So what exactly is that? Or is it like little cities within a city, or how does that work?
The city of Chicago is divided up into 50 wards geographically. Each ward elects an alderman for a term of 4 years. And what happens is that the tradition in Chicago is there's tremendous power in that alderman to decide what will happen in his ward. He can stop building permits. Or he or she, the alderman can stop building permits, can prevent other things from happening in the ward, direct who gets garbage collection, who doesn't. There are all sorts of things that are accruing power to the alderman that are what in the end creates is great corruption. For example, Alderman Burke is up on federal charges because he was extorting a business in his ward by saying, if you want the permit to redo your driveway, you have to send all of your business law litigation to my law firm. Otherwise, you're not getting your permit. Well, that's gone on and on and on in Chicago, and the only way to stop it, quite frankly, start to redistribute the power so that aldermen don't have the temptation of trying to extort money and other privileges out of people in order to get the public permits and other public access that is their right as citizens in the city of Chicago.
That sounds like it is a melting pot of corruption. It either can be or already is, and I believe that in some respects it already is. Not necessarily everybody, but I believe that there are some people that, as you pointed out, are using their power to wean business from businesses within their ward. So that does need to stop. One other thing that is always, it seems like it has been going on for years and years, if not decades and decades, is the pension situation in the city of Chicago, the state of Illinois as well, of course. But the city of Chicago, every time anything is discussed as far as a budget and where to get money from and so on and so forth, keep hearing about all these pension promises without the actual funding going into the pension funds. So eventually the Ponzi scheme, strong term, but it seems like a Ponzi scheme, is going to run out of money, and then what's going to happen to all these people that are going to rely on these pensions?
Well, it's not long term. It's actually short term because a lot of these unions and such have gone to court. There are court judgments requiring substantial, and I mean substantial, payments by the city to begin to correct the deficiencies in the pension funds. The City of Chicago municipal pension funds are literally a financial disaster. Normally in a pension fund, you look forward to how much you're expected to pay over time. There are what are called actuaries who are professionals who calculate that based upon what they see from your employee pool. And then they give you a percentage, meaning what percent of assets do you have on deposit that will pay all of those obligations in the future that can be seen. Well, normally a healthy pension fund should be at least 80% funded, as they call it. Better to be 90% funded. City of Chicago pension funds, some are down as low as 22%. Some are in the 30s. The teachers union was actually a very good, well-funded pension fund, but then the city government went to the fund and said, well, we have to take away some of your money and give it to the other pension funds. So now the teachers union, having been diligent, the teachers fund, having been diligent, now has been rated for other funds. So they're all depleted. But it is literally, the piper has never been paid by the people in the government of the city of Chicago. And it is coming home that now it's going to have to be paid. There's really a disaster coming here if we just continue to kick the can down the road and we say, well, someone will go borrow the money somewhere or someone will do something because it's never really hit us before. Well, the message from the Republican Party is it's about to hit.
So it's the proverbial robbing Peter to pay Paul when it came to the teachers union, the pension fund, and let's say the Chicago police pension fund and other, there's so many. So it was almost like, hey, there's a pot of gold that's not going to be touched for a little while. We'll just steal some out or borrow some.
It's really more of a shell game. They're borrowing here, they're borrowing there, and the public has been lulled into a sense of security that the bill will never arrive. Well, that's a fallacy. It's just a case of how long it can be stalled off. And the question becomes, is this something we're going to give to the next generation to pay off? Is this going to be what they call generational theft, that we live high on the hog and spend all the money and then leave the bill to the children and the grandchildren? Because sooner or later, either there has to be reform of these pension funds or there has to be payment. One of the two has got to occur, and it's got to occur in the reasonably near future.
I guess, and it's this is something that this is not something, I should say, that I've ever really investigated. And I'm not expecting you off the top of your head to give me a full description, but I just don't understand how it's legal for governments, local governments, state governments. I mean, we all know we've got 20 some odd $trillion in debt nationally. I just don't understand how it can be, budgets can be passed with these major shortfalls and it's just okay. I don't understand how that's legal. And I'm not asking you necessarily to tell me why, if you know, if you want to give me a short, but why can't something
Well,
be
I
put in
can
writing
give you
saying,
somewhat
hey,
of a short course. First of all, they don't put enough assets in. Then each pension fund has an assumption about what kind of rate of return it's going to get in the market on its assets. And for year after year after year, there have been these rosy assumptions about what kind of interest return the
Right.
pension fund will get, which is nowhere near reality. It's just a dog and pony show used to get the budget past the voters, so nobody's really looking very hard. Well, now we've come to a time where we have to look very hard. But there's also a second problem, John, which is the state constitution. The state constitution has a specific provision that bars any reform of any pension benefit at all, which is what's dogging the state government, but it's no different in the city. We can't reform the pension contracts and everything else until we amend the state constitution to allow it to happen. Now, your voters may recall there was a huge effort a number of years ago, maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, to put that on the ballot. It has to go on the ballot on a statewide referendum. Well, a major effort occurred to do it, and Mike Madigan's lawyers, bluntly, went to the Illinois Supreme Court with a couple of tricky arguments, and the Democratic Illinois Supreme Court said, fine, threw it off the ballot, would not allow the voters to vote on it. So unfortunately, it's going to take another effort like that to get the Constitution amended so that governments can begin to reform the pension problem. I simply put out the case of Mike Madigan. He's about to get a very juicy pension for the rest of his life, far beyond anything, 10 times what he's put in from his wages. And he's going to be enjoying that for life. And you and I, John, and all the rest of the people listening, we're paying for it.
We're paying for it, absolutely.
And we may be paying for it directly, John, because what happens is when a pension fund runs out of money, the pension obligation does not stop. What happens is the money starts coming directly out of the operational funds of the city. So instead of paying for policemen or firemen or other things like that, we pay pensions. That's what's going to happen. Or we raise taxes exorbitantly to try to cover everything out of the operational budget year to year to year.
Right.
That's the nightmare. That's the real nightmare that we're not close to it right now, but it's coming. And with these new court judgments, I give no one any comfort at all.
At some point in time, not only are the politicians going to have to be held accountable, but the judges, like you were just describing, the judges that said, okay, well, we can leave it off, and you put it more eloquently than that, but at the end of the day, that's what it came down to. It just didn't get put in front of the voters, but those were judges that were saying, no, we're not going to allow the people to vote on this, and they have to start being held accountable at the ballot box, or somehow in a peaceful way that we as individuals can say, hey, listen, we need the right to be able to vote on these things because it is our tax money, it is our tax dollars, and it's coming out of our pockets.
Well, judges in Illinois are elected, and the judges of the Illinois Supreme Court are elected statewide. And you may recall, John, that just in the last election, there was a major effort to make sure that Justice Kilbride of the Illinois Supreme Court was not reelected, a Democrat and a friend of Mike Madigan, and the effort to unseat him was successful. So now there's one more sane voice on the Illinois Supreme Court as opposed to people worrying about whether the Democratic Party likes them or not for the next election. And unfortunately, I offer everyone, sort of like Churchill, nothing but blood, sweat, and tears, that we're going to have to go back in and get other new judges elected in the Illinois Supreme Court that will actually serve the people, not the Democratic Party of Illinois and the unions, the public unions. So we're going to have to go in, fight it out on the streets and in ballot boxes and knocking on doors and getting better judges elected to the Illinois Supreme Court.
Very good. And while we're on the subject of elections, naturally, you and I talked several times prior to sitting down and having this conversation. But one of the things that you mentioned to me that I found interesting is the number of votes in Chicago that, percentage-wise, that need to go Republican in order to have real change here in Chicago. It's not that exorbitant of a number, is it? Is it crazy to think that at some point in time, the city of Chicago might actually see a Chicago Republican mayor?
That might be a stretch, given the voting patterns. Voting patterns don't change overnight. That's one thing that anyone who studies it will tell you. They're very, very difficult to move. But a couple of things are happening. First of all, as far as the percentages, people should understand that 21% of the entire population of Illinois lives within the borders of the city of Chicago, not Cook County, just the city. So when the vote changes in the city of Chicago, which normally is a fountain of Democratic votes, that has a major effect statewide. So that when we as the Chicago Republican Party can get out there and get the Republican vote out, and the Republicans come in and vote, it can tip statewide races. And when I say statewide races, I'm not just talking about down ballot. I'm talking about the governor's race, the U.S. Senate race, which has national implications, and also even a presidential election. Because the bottom line rule, John, that is borne out by the evidence is that no Republican statewide candidate has ever lost with just 20% or more of the vote in the city of Chicago. We go back in time and people, names that people might remember, like Judy Bar-Topinka or Dan Rutherford, they routinely got 23, 24. Judy Bar-Topinka, if I remember right, even got 29 or 30% one year in the city. When that happens, she's a lock because the downstate vote will be Republican. The Democrats win elections statewide elections by getting huge pluralities out of the city of Chicago. And if we as the Republican Party can begin to cut that down, the pressure on the Democrats and their candidates becomes huge to try and salvage the election. So literally, statewide elections can be won and lost in the city of Chicago, even though it will be a Democratic plurality in Chicago. The question is how much.
All right, I'm going to switch gears a little bit here, but one of the Chicago one of the items in Chicago that is always discussed, and it always comes up around election time, but pretty much every single year, every new budget that is put in front of the people always has to do with property taxes. Now, property taxes, a lot of times during elections or leading up to whoever is running for whatever, if they have anything to do with property taxes, they will try to promise that there will not be a hike in property taxes. But lo and behold, a year or two after the election, when there's a big hole in the budget, property taxes get tapped. So my question is, when it comes to the people of Chicago and the percentages that need to go Republican, you said 21, 22%, somewhere through there, why are people voting against themselves time and time and time again here in Chicago when it seems like, again, born and raised here in Chicago, and I can never remember a time where it's been anything but a Democrat-run city government. So I just don't understand with property taxes always seeming to go up, and the potholes always seem to get bigger, and the violence always seeming to get worse. Why is it that so many people in Chicago, do you think, opinion, why do they keep voting against themselves and not giving the Republican Party a shot? Is it just because there's not enough of an effort here in the city of Chicago? Should more of an effort be put in different communities?
I think it's a number of things. One, like I say, people tend to not change their voting patterns. If their daddy was a Democrat, they're a Democrat. Second of all, I don't think the Republican Party, particularly in Chicago, has given them enough of a reason to consider switching their vote. I think that we need to show that we are the party of growth and we are the party of supporting prosperity, which is one of my favorite words, and that everything has to be geared towards gaining greater prosperity, because none of these problems are solved until there is greater prosperity, even if it is a social conflict such as our racial situation in the city of Chicago. Prosperity can be a a very good medicine for that if we can engineer better prosperity in the Black community, the Hispanic community, and other minorities. However, it's also an effort that we have to have an organization that will get the Republican vote out. And that is one of the things that I am dedicated to as chairman in my 4-year term, is to build a structure within the Chicago Republican Party through volunteers and other ways to get the Republican vote out. Too many Republicans throw up their hands and don't vote. So the other thing, though, is to go to these conservative Democrats and say to them, you need to reconsider what you're doing here. And it is happening. More and more, particularly on, say, the southwest side and the northwest sides of the city, what's going on is the Democratic Party has moved so far left that it has left a lot of people behind. They're looking at that Democratic Party and they're saying, with Mike Madigan gone, with Mayor Daley gone, with Ed Burke almost gone, with all these figures gone, it's no longer the party they knew. It's now the party of a very liberal, very radical regime. And so they are now looking at it going, they are reconsidering it. I point out that President Trump, his vote in 2020 actually increased by 30% over 2016 within the city of Chicago. His rise in minority communities was startling, how much it rose on a percentage basis in minority communities. People are beginning to get the message that this Democratic Party is not one that they should want to support. It's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of effort. It's going to take a lot of talking. It's going to take knocking on doorknobs. It's going to take educating the public a little bit that they are on the Titanic and they need to change captains, so to speak, if they're going to get out of it. Otherwise, we're all going down. And so if you keep following these people, you keep following this party, this Democratic regime, they're taking us down. There's no question in my mind about that. The city will decline because these people have no answers whatsoever, other than everybody keeps their snouts in the trough.
Right. Okay. Well, I know we covered a lot of ground in a relatively short period of time. We've done a little over 20 minutes, and we've hit on some very good subjects, and there's a lot of subjects still to go, but I don't want to take up your whole day. I do really think that doing this with people such as yourself, who really are tuned into the city and have some great ideas, we're going to have a variety of people on, as you're well aware. We're going to have a lot of people come on from the Republican Party, and not everybody's going to have the exact same ideas. I think that has become a bit of a misnomer, is that anybody in the Republican Party all thinks the exact same way. And I think that we're going to have a lot of people on with some really good ideas that should be looked at and discussed amongst a whole slew of people all over the city of Chicago, because there's a lot of people that really do need help, and there's a lot of people that really want to put that help forth if given the chance and the opportunity to speak their piece and give their opinions. And that's one of the things that I'm going to try to do with this show, is when an opinion is being given, I think in media nowadays, a lot of times opinions are spoken as facts. And what I want to do is try and separate facts, because there are hard facts when it comes to numbers, because numbers don't lie, but there's also opinions on how things can change. And I want to make sure that people can get their opinion out and have it be titled as an opinion. But I also want to bring facts forth, like you've been able to do all 20 some odd minutes, and really kind of tell people, hey, listen, we do have some problems, and here are some of the problems, and here are some ideas, and let's see if we can get a much better discourse going between the two sides, and see if we can do some good work to try and get some ideas out there that people might not know exist here in the city of Chicago. Again, born and raised, and always looked at it as a democratic city, and there is no changing that, but I think that there is some changing in that, and there is some changes that can be made with good conversations. What say you on that?
Well, I can promise everyone that the Republican Party in Chicago under me is a party of change, radical change if necessary, but different, meaning radical change of the good, meaning attacking the problems, not just running around with grievances. Let's come up with foundational, thought-through policies that are actually going to attack the problem. Also, I'm wide open to any idea. I'm not a part of the Republican establishment, I think as it's called, as derisively in this state. I've always been something of a maverick in Chicago, and I'm bringing that philosophy to the party here, and the best idea wins. Who's going to come up with the idea, and who's going to fight for the new ideas? be it even in the black community and elsewhere, that we need to change things because we have to change prosperity. We have to change law and order in this town. We have to change the power structure in this town if this city is to prosper. And I truly believe that Chicago is the crossroads of America. I always tell people, if you want to get to know America, you can spend the real America, spend 3 months going around the country or spend 3 weeks in Chicago. Either way, you're going to know the best and the worst of America. So I always look at this place, and we also have such divergent intellectual traditions in this town. Truly, many of the answers for America ought to be found in the city of Chicago, and we are dedicated to trying to do that, be it on race or other issues. So we are a much different brand of Republican Party than I think a lot of people may have seen in the past.
And that's good. That really, because I feel that taking, whether it's North Side or South Side or West Side, there are really good people in all the different neighborhoods, genders, races, colors, creeds, that are hardworking people that want to live in safe neighborhoods, send their kids to good schools, schools that actually teach them about the world and business and how to really get out in the world and do well for themselves and the next generation and such. I think that the news media is their sole premise is to show the controversy because that sells commercial time. And I think that there's so many good people across the city that really just, okay, let's talk rather than let's yell and let's scream. Let's just talk things out. I think that there's some really, really good people that could use some help, that want to help and solve the problems instead of just screaming at each other about the problems. Something that you
I can say, John, that we have some excellent new people coming into the party. I'm building a staff of younger people, not older people. They are not simply sitting with a title. They are doing work in communications and ballot security in events. I'm very proud of the staff that we've built in the party. They are real doers, and they are wide open to new ideas. So I invite everyone to check out this Chicago Republican Party and see if you wouldn't want to be a part of it.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Now, as we get some more episodes under our belt and we're able to really start pointing people in the direction, is there a website just off the top of your head that you would say for people who are interested just to learn a little bit about what you're doing? Is there a website they can go to or a social media hashtag?
Our website is www.chicagogop.com. We're also on Facebook as the Chicago Republican Party. We're on Twitter as the Chicago Republican Party. I invite everyone to, why don't you take a look?
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, Steve, I really appreciate your time and just the explanations you were able to give and some insight as to some of the problems that we need to face up to and look at and work together to solve. And just, this inaugural episode of Big Shoulder Digital and just I'm excited to listen to people, what they have to say from all areas around the city and see what can be done to bring Chicago back to what it once was. I love the city, and I think that there's still, naturally there's a lot of great already still in the city, but there are some things that need to change and there are some problems that need to be solved. And I think working together and bringing some young minds to the table and listening to what people have to say who have fresh ideas. I think that's great that you're doing that, and I look forward to talking with you again and talking with some of the people on your staff and people around Chicago that have good ideas that maybe just want an opportunity to express them and get them out into the public landscape and see what we can all do. I really appreciate your time.
Well, I congratulate you on the new show, John. I hope it's a great success.
Thank you very much, and to everybody out there who is watching this inaugural and listening and thinking to themselves, they just talk. I've never been in politics, and to be honest with you, I don't really plan to ever be in politics, but I do have an interest in the well-being of people here in Chicago. It doesn't matter what race you are, or what gender you are, or what sexual preference, any of that. People are people, and people, deserve good, accountable government, making good, strong decisions, and not wasting their money. And I'm hoping that through this show and the episodes and whether it's election time or not election time, just to have people come on and express some opinions and realize, by watching this and bringing so many people to the table that, hey, there are a lot of people that all have the common interests of the city of Chicago in mind, and they're not all just in it for themselves, and it's not all finger pointing. I do think that there's a lot of good people, and I think that there's a lot of smart people, younger people who can bring ideas, and we invite you. I'm going to start more with the social media. We're going to be building a platform here as well, but I just want to take a second to say, again, thank you so much to Steve for coming on the show, and thank you for watching. We're going to be doing this pretty frequently, and we'll start live streaming some episodes, but for right now, we just want to get some ideas out there and get some feedback. So when you do see this, whether it's on Facebook or Rumble, YouTube, just, if you have something to say, if you have an idea, a suggestion, or want to be a part of the show, just reach out. We're just here to listen and talk and discuss, and hopefully bring Chicago back to what it used to be, which is fantastic. Far different than what I can see nowadays. I just want people to live a little more harmonious and work together instead of finger pointing all the time. So for now, I'm just going to sign off. John Lally, I will see you all very soon. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.